My name is Clara, and 2 years ago, my life imploded. I was 29, living in a cozy suburban house I'd meticulously decorated, engaged to a guy named Jake, or so I thought. He was 30, a musician with a good heart. Or at least, that's what I believed. He also had a daughter, Lily, who was 6 years old and had special needs. Jake and Lily came into my life 3 years prior, a package deal I willingly embraced. Lily was a challenge, no question, but she was also sweet, innocent, and completely reliant on us. She needed extra care, patience, and understanding, but I genuinely grew to love her. I pictured her in my life forever, even after Jake and I tied the knot. We'd been living together for 6 months when Jake proposed. It felt right. We were building a life together, a family. A week later, everything shattered. "Work thing," he said, kissing me goodbye one Tuesday morning. "Big presentation. Need to be there for a few days. Can you watch Lily?" Of course I could. We were engaged. This was our life now. Lily and I were perfectly fine together. Jake wouldn't be gone for more than a few days. So, I smiled, waved him off, and went inside to start Lily's morning routine. Little did I know it would be the last time I saw him for a long, long time. 3 days turned into 5. No calls, no texts, nothing. I started to get a knot in my stomach. He's probably just swamped, I told myself, trying to stay calm. But the knot tightened with each passing hour. A full week went by. I was officially in panic mode. My calls went straight to voicemail. His family? Blocked. His friends? Radio silence. He'd vanished into thin air, leaving Lily and me behind. He deactivated all social media. Desperate, I called his workplace. That's when the bottom dropped out completely. He'd resigned a month earlier. No forwarding address, no explanation. Just gone. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He wasn't coming back. Not for me. Not even for Lily. But Lily was here. She needed me. So I shoved my panic and confusion aside and focused on her. I had to be strong, even though I felt like I was crumbling inside. That night, after Lily was asleep, I tore the house apart. I was looking for anything that might explain where he'd gone, why he'd left. I rifled through his drawers, his closet, even under the furniture. And then I found it, tucked under his side of the mattress, taped to the bottom where it couldn't be easily seen, was an envelope. My name was scrawled across the front in his handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. The letter inside was short, brutal, and it destroyed everything I thought I knew about Jake, about our relationship, about my life. The letter started with an apology. A weak, pathetic apology for everything. Then came the confession. He admitted that our relationship had been a mistake, that he'd never truly loved me, that he'd been cheating on me with his ex-girlfriend, Chloe, on and off for the entire 3 years we'd been together. Chloe? I knew the name. She was his college sweetheart, the one who got away. He'd always brushed her off as just a friend, a part of his past. I believed him. I trusted him. The letter went on. He claimed he'd proposed to me out of guilt, hoping it would end his affair with Chloe. But she'd found out, confronted him, and proposed to him. A few days later, they decided to ditch their lives and run away together. The words blurred as I read. My heart hammered in my chest. I felt like I was suffocating. How could he do this? How could he lie to me for so long? Then came the truly sickening part. He wrote that he was sorry, but he couldn't take Lily with him. She was a burden, a weight they couldn't carry. He was leaving her with me. He left it up to me to decide what to do with her. I could adopt her, put her in foster care, whatever I saw fit. He and Chloe were done. They were going to live the life they'd always dreamed of, free from responsibility. I crumpled the letter in my fist, tears streaming down my face. I wanted to scream, to break something, to lash out at anyone who would listen. But I couldn't. I had to be strong. For Lily. I knew deep down that I couldn't adopt her. I wasn't ready to be a single mother, especially not to a child with special needs. I loved Lily, but I couldn't give her the life she deserved on my own. I knew it wasn't fair to her, or to myself. My head throbbed. I felt numb. There was only one thing I could do. The next morning, I called Child Protective Services. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, interviews, and gut-wrenching decisions. I explained everything to CPS, showed them the letter, and detailed Jake's abandonment. They were obligated to contact Lily's paternal grandparents. They were elderly and, frankly, not equipped to care for a child with Lily's needs. They made it clear they didn't want the responsibility. The situation was a mess. Lily was confused, scared, and missed her dad terribly. I tried to comfort her, but what could I say? How could I explain that the man she loved had abandoned her, that he didn't want her anymore? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Chloe's parents stepped in. They'd always been fond of Lily, and they were willing to take her in. They were a stable, loving couple, and they had the resources to provide for Lily's needs. I breathed a sigh of relief. Lily was safe. She was going to be okay. I stayed in contact with Chloe's parents, checking in on Lily, visiting when I could. It wasn't the same, but it was the best I could do. Meanwhile, attempts were made to locate Jake and Chloe, but it wasn't considered a high-priority case. They didn't want to be found, and they were good at hiding. A year after they left, their parental rights were terminated by the court. Chloe's parents were officially declared Lily's legal guardians. Emotionally, I was a wreck. I was heartbroken, betrayed, and felt utterly alone. I lost my fiancé, my future, and a child I had grown to love. I don't know how, but I survived. I went to therapy, leaned on my friends, and tried to rebuild my life, piece by painful piece. 2 years passed. I focused on my career, my friends, my hobbies. I even started dating again, though I couldn't shake the feeling that every man was just another Jake in disguise. Then, last week, they showed up at my door. I answered the door to find Jake and Chloe standing on my porch, looking contrite and pathetic. I almost slammed the door in their faces. "Clara, please," Jake pleaded, his voice cracking. "We need to talk." I hesitated. A part of me wanted to hear what they had to say, to understand why they'd done what they did. Another part of me wanted to scream at them until my voice gave out. I took a deep breath and stepped back, opening the door wider. "You have 5 minutes," I said, my voice cold. They launched into a rambling apology, tears streaming down their faces. They said they'd made a mistake, that they'd realized they'd thrown away everything important. "We're ready to be parents now," Chloe sobbed. "We want Lily back. We want to make amends." They admitted they'd done something terrible, but they wanted a second chance. They were even willing to write me a check for any amount I wanted, if I helped them get Lily back. The audacity of it. They thought they could buy their way back into her life after abandoning her like trash. Rage surged through me, hot and blinding. I clenched my fists, trying to control myself. "You're too late," I said, my voice trembling. "I gave Lily to the foster system 2 years ago. She's not with me anymore. If you're looking for your daughter, you're at the wrong door." I slammed the door in their faces, leaving them crying on my doorstep. I stood there for a moment, shaking with anger, before calling Chloe's parents to warn them. After the encounter with Jake and Chloe, I told my parents everything. I expected them to be outraged, to offer me support. Instead, they were disappointed. They said what I did was twisted, that I shouldn't have lied to Jake and Chloe about Lily. "They deserve to know where their daughter is," my mother said, her voice strained. "You should tell them the truth and let them decide what to do." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything they'd put me through, after abandoning their own child, my parents thought they deserved a happy ending. "They abandoned her," I shouted, my voice rising. "They didn't want her. Now that they're ready to be parents, they think they can just waltz back into her life?" My father sighed. "Clara, I understand you're hurt, but..." "Hurt?" I interrupted. Is that all you think I am? They destroyed my life, and now you're taking their side? We argued for hours, going in circles. They thought I was being cruel. I thought they were being irrational. Finally, I stormed out of their house, feeling more alone than ever. I knew Chloe's parents didn't want Jake and Chloe to know where Lily was. They were protecting her, giving her the stability and love she deserved. I wasn't going to betray their trust, or Lily's. I was sticking to my story. Lily was in the foster system. Jake and Chloe could go to hell. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between my parents and me grew deafening. They hadn't called, hadn't texted. It was like I'd been erased from their lives. Then, Chloe's parents called. Chloe had contacted them, sending an email filled with apologies and pleas for information about Lily. They ignored it, refusing to give her any information. She has no right to know where Lily is, Chloe's mother said, her voice tight with anger. She gave up that right when she abandoned her. I agreed wholeheartedly. I was seething. How dare they think they could just waltz back into our lives, expecting forgiveness and help? They had no idea how much pain they'd caused, how much work it had taken to heal. And it wasn't just me. Lily had nightmares for months after they left. She would wake up screaming for her daddy. Chloe's parents and I had to pick up the pieces of her broken heart, comforting her, reassuring her that she was loved. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd never truly trust another man again. I'd been on a few dates, but I couldn't let myself get close to anyone. The fear of being abandoned again was too strong. And now, my own parents were calling me cruel? It was unbelievable. I was hurt and angry, and I refused to be the first to reach out. If they wanted to talk, they could come to me. I confided in a few close friends. They were horrified by my parents' reaction, offering unwavering support. It was a relief to have someone on my side, to know that I wasn't crazy. Then, Chloe showed up at Chloe's parents' house, uninvited. Chloe's parents called me, shaken. Chloe had arrived at their doorstep, alone, demanding to see Lily. They refused to let her in, telling her they wanted nothing to do with her. Chloe, of course, didn't take it well. She started crying, pleading, claiming she had a right to see her daughter. She banged on the door, screaming that they were lying, that Lily had to be there. Thankfully, Lily was napping and didn't wake up. Chloe's parents threatened to call the police, and she finally left. I was furious. They had managed to keep Lily safe, but I felt exposed and vulnerable. It was only a matter of time before they turned up at my doorstep. I started to suspect Jake's parents had something to do with it. They had always adored him, and I wouldn't be surprised if they'd stayed in contact, even after he abandoned Lily. They might have guessed that Lily was now living with Chloe's parents. The thought of them conspiring against us made my blood boil. They were all failures, as parents and as human beings. I didn't understand why they were so desperate to get back into Lily's life. Maybe they couldn't have another child. Maybe they just wanted to alleviate their guilt. Whatever the reason, it had nothing to do with love or concern for Lily. The whole situation was starting to take a toll on me. I felt like I was suffocating, constantly thinking about Jake and Chloe, reliving the pain of the past. I was terrified of falling back into the dark place I'd been in after they left. Time seemed to stand still. 2 days after Chloe's visit, Jake showed up at my house. He looked worse than the last time I saw him. His eyes were bloodshot and his clothes were rumpled. I immediately told him to leave or I'd call the police. He started crying, saying he knew he'd made a mistake, that he'd learned his lesson. Karma finally caught up with us, he sobbed. Chloe was diagnosed with cervical cancer a few months ago. We believe this is our punishment for abandoning Lily and hurting you. I stared at him, unmoved. Cancer? Was this some kind of sick joke? He went on, saying they'd come back to make amends, hoping we would forgive them so they could get Lily back. I didn't believe a word of it. Your story makes no difference to me, I said, my voice flat. I haven't forgotten how I felt when you left. I will never forget that feeling. I don't feel the need to forgive you. He insisted he wasn't making it up, that everything he'd said was true. He regretted everything I'd been through, what Chloe's parents had been through. Then he dropped a bombshell. It wasn't his parents who told him where Lily was. It was my parents. They felt bad knowing he couldn't be with his daughter. Since I wasn't going to help him, they took it upon themselves to reveal Lily's whereabouts. He also said Chloe had already visited them but had no luck seeing Lily. They thought I would at least have some sympathy for them, knowing about Chloe's condition, and would arrange a meeting between them and Lily. But I wasn't interested. I wanted them gone. He said they were flying back home within the week and would never bother us again. He left, and I was left reeling. My own parents? They had betrayed me, sided with the man who had destroyed my life. I didn't know what to do, how to process this new level of betrayal. I felt like my world was crumbling all over again. Time crawled by. As promised, there were no further attempts by Jake and Chloe to contact us. I spoke with Chloe's parents, informing them about the cervical cancer diagnosis. They were shocked, but said they weren't going to reach out to her. Not yet. Their granddaughter needed them more. Maybe in the future they'd consider it, but for now, it was too painful. Besides, there was no proof that Chloe was even sick. I couldn't help but wonder if it was just another manipulation tactic. The distance between my parents and me remained. They hadn't tried to contact me, and I didn't plan to contact them. What could they possibly say? I clung to the support of my friends, who were outraged by my parents' actions. They reassured me that I was right to cut them off, that I deserved better. I focused on my own well-being, trying to undo the damage that had been done. The quiet didn't last forever. Chloe and Jake made a colossal mistake. They tried to sue Chloe's parents to regain their parental rights. It backfired spectacularly. Chloe's parents, who had never filed a formal complaint against them for child abandonment, finally did so. They sued them not only for abandonment but also for child support. I wanted to cheer. They had no case. The law was on our side. As for my parents, I had a brief, angry conversation with them. They called me, upset that I hadn't called them to mend our relationship. I asked them if siding with my cheating ex who abandoned his daughter was the right thing to do. And even worse, that they went behind my back to reveal a secret that wasn't theirs to share. Their answer was even more outrageous. They said yes. Their excuse was that they couldn't keep parents away from their child. They asked me if I wouldn't feel bad if someone had kept me away from them. I told them that I wouldn't feel bad, because the people who were keeping me away from them were themselves. The call ended. I can finally say that everything has turned out better than I expected. First, Jake and Chloe's petition to regain parental rights was denied. They did it themselves by trying to start a lawsuit with the foster system. Then there's the lawsuit that Chloe's parents filed against them. They won. They now have to pay child support. Then they lost a criminal trial for child abandonment, and now they have to pay a $4 fine and spend that time in prison. The state took the case. In other good news, I'm still not talking to my parents. At first, it hurt to be abandoned by them, but now when I think about them, I think about Jake and Chloe. I don't think there's any coming back from defending a couple of people like that. I hope everyone has a better life than the one I've had to deal with.